Okay, let's take a look at what happened over the weekend. We're doing a review of the area council polls here in the Federal Capital Territory. Normally we have, well, yes, we have just 6 of them, 6 area councils in the Federal Capital Territory. You know of one. Oftentimes, many people who come to visit Abuja think that where you see the sign, "Welcome to Abuja," is Abuja itself. But there's so many other areas. There's Gwagwalada, there's Buari, there is Kuje. Where you see the sign, "Welcome to Abuja," is Amak. Yes, it's Abuja Municipal Area Council. So, but we have this morning able guests to discuss what happened, what transpired over the weekend. It is about the only area council, that's local government elections, that INEC conduct. So if we're to take this as a test of INEC's preparedness for off-season elections coming on later in the year, would we be able to say that INEC is ready? These are some of the questions we posing this morning. We have with us this morning Madam Eniobi, who is the convener of the Situation Room and also country director of Action Aid. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And Mr. Festus Sokoye is a National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education at INEC. You're welcome as well.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning and happy Valentine's Day to both of you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
So let us start. Madam, you monitored the elections here. Let me use the word observe, because I know that there's a difference between monitors and observers. But you observed the elections here in the Federal Capital Territory. How prepared would you say that INEC was for the polls? Let's also look at the preparedness of the electorate as well.
I think the first thing to start with was the conflicting report or conflicting, statement by the police force. Because before we went to bed, there was a statement that came out from INEC from the police to say, from midnight to 4 p.m. there will be restriction of movement. And then before we went to bed, we had, the police force has relaxed the rules. And that came as a shock for us. Because how would you do that when you know that the normal rules in election is the restriction? And the restriction has the reasons why the restrictions. And then early in the morning again, we came up and they said there are restrictions. All from the police, because I had to make sure, before going to bed, I had to say, is this true or false? Is it fake news? Or somebody is trying to disrupt the elections? And then it came up and they said, it is true that people have been restricted and or relaxed and then restricted and all. I think it started from there. The other is we deployed from Situation Room, we deployed to all the 6 area councils. In a few places, you had the INEC officials already on ground, at 7:30 in the morning. A number of places recorded that. But on the average, about 9:30 in the morning, deployment has happened in several places. So one will say that in few places, many people did not turn up. You also had the issue of relocation of polling units. People going to the polling units. There are many places where you have very few people waiting on the line. But again, you have even, close to that polling unit, you have 1,000 people. I think at the end of the day, I saw a lot of enthusiasm. Those who were out came out en masse, and they were able to go through the process. The process had challenges, but voting happened.
Well, if you look at the numbers of 1.3 million registered voters, we understand just roughly about 10% of that came out to vote. That wasn't very good, was it?
This is why we are asking, when we are asking the president to sign the electoral bill so that civic education can begin, we need a lot of information sharing. We need to be able to, INEC need to release a guideline on time so that we can really start. Now you have a FCT election, having about 10%. We're struggling from Anambra State the other day. You can see from Anambra, you always feel that Anambra people are low voters, in terms of if you look at the general elections. But today is not Anambra anymore. We're having the FCT. About 1.4 million people registered to vote. In some of the polling units where you had more than 2,000 voters, only about 157 turned up to vote. We even have cases where only one registered voter in a polling unit and nobody turned up and all of that. Again, that also showed that wherever INEC said they were going to deploy, they were able to deploy. Some of them may have come late, and that for me, and I saw, the police, that's another thing, another angle to it. Early deployment of security agencies. The police were able to deploy. We saw them almost at 7:30. You had a lot of the polling units had the security people already. It's encouraging. We need the Electoral Act to be active. We need it to be assented to so that INEC can release their guidelines, so that they can start working assiduously, going with National Orientation Agency. We need to go to the communities to be able to educate the people. We need this, the continuous voter registration exercise. We need to take it seriously. If people are seeing that their votes count, like what we're seeing in the FCT election now, if they are assured that one vote won't count, they will go out there to cast their votes. But when they are not sure, when the government is also not paying attention by returning ordinary electoral, I would say ordinary, it has to do with lives, of course. It has to do with so much, the progress that we make in democracy. But we are still struggling with assenting to a bill that will give more powers to INEC to organize. So it's really, we cannot be toying with the Electoral Act. We cannot be toying with it. And now people you can now see in the Federal Capital Territory, many people don't want to go out and vote, while others are suffering. And so I think we better take it very seriously. And we are delaying. Now almost a deadline to assenting to that bill is coming just in a few days. And the president, there is no statement from the president, President Muhammadu Buhari, on the Electoral Act. Why are we toying with people's lives?
Well, we'll wait and see what the response will be from the presidency for that. But let me ask you, Mr. Okoye, what are some of the challenges that you faced as INEC for the FCT polls?
Well, as far as the commission is concerned, the FCT polls went on very peacefully, and it was well organized. And as you can see, from the beginning, from the time we conceived the idea of fixing the FCT polls for the 12th of February 2022, we carried all the stakeholders in the electoral process along. And all the things we did, we made sure that they were aware. For instance, from the beginning, we made some documents available to both political parties, civil society groups and organizations, and the media, relating to the fact that in 593 of the polling units that we do not have voters, and that we are not going to print ballot papers for those polling units, and we are not going to deploy staff. We also made it very, very clear that we have polling units that have between 1 and 1,000 registered voters, and then that we have some polling units that also have between 3,000 and 6,000 registered voters. And we did tell them what we are going to do in relation to some of these polling units. Now, on the Thursday before the election day, we went to the central bank with the representatives of all the political parties and retrieved all the materials to the INEC state office. From there, they accompanied these materials to all the 6 area councils. From the 6 area councils on Friday, they accompanied these materials to our super registration centers and to the racks. And they also accompanied these materials to the polling units on election day. Now, there were a few challenges relating to movement on election day. One, if we do not have the full complement of security agencies to accompany these materials to the polling units, we are likely going to delay to wait for them. Secondly, all of us know that there was also the challenge of fuel in the Federal Capital Territory on election day. Some of the transporters that we engaged took it for granted that there was going to be availability of PMS, and some of them did not buy fuel on time. And then some of them carried some of our officials to the filling stations on election day looking for fuel, only for them to be disappointed. So that accounts for the slight delay we have in very, very few polling units. But in almost all the polling units across the 6 area councils, the polls opened before 9:30, and so we are very, very happy with the level of deployment and with the professionalism displayed by the ad hoc staff that we deploy for this particular exercise.
But the numbers, I mean, the total numbers of voters at the end of the day, it's not very encouraging. And when you look at the total number of registered voters in the FCT, vis-a-vis the total number of people who came out to vote, is INEC concerned about the low voter turnout?
Yes, we are concerned about the low voter turnout in relation to elections across Nigeria. And the issue of low voter turnout is not peculiar to the FCT. But if you segregate the area councils, you will see that in some of the area councils we had high voter turnout, and in some of the area councils we have low voter turnout. AMAC has been known to be a chronic case of low voter turnout, especially on election day. Most people who live here, especially in AMAC, hardly go out to go and vote. They go and do some other things on election day. But in places like Buhari, in places like Kuje, in places like Gwagwalada and Abaji, you can see that the voter turnout is slightly high. But I believe that with some of the measures we've put in place, especially in terms of the new polling units we have created, the moment we populate some of these new polling units and then decongest the existing polling units, I believe that we are going to have a high voter turnout.
I believe that you're already looking at the why of the, that's why you're talking about the polling units.
Yes.
The congestion some polling units and creating new polling units.
Yes.
In addition to that, what else would you say you have found responsible for the low voter turnout in Abuja?
Well, if you are looking at the issue of low voter turnout, you have to attribute it to so many factors. There are people who really believe that whatever they do, when they go out to go and vote, that their votes will not count. And we have tried and tried and tried to make sure that all our processes are transparent and all our procedures are transparent. We have shown the Nigerian people that this present commission has the capacity and the courage to organize elections that are really, really transparent,
no,
and also elections that are very, very professional.
Have we been able to do any research, any poll to find out why? I know it might sound a little funny because INEC would conduct a poll, now has to do a poll to find out why people are not coming out to vote.
Yes.
But I'm sure that, in many different areas, I mean, the reason why people might not come out in a place like Abuja, for instance, might be different from the reason why people might not turn out in Anambra, for instance. So have we been able to do any research to say, this is almost a perennial problem we notice. We've noticed that in some places, for instance, in AMAC, off the top of my head, I can give you a few hypotheses. But we've noticed that in places like AMAC, there's always a perennial low voter turnout. Places like Kuje, for instance, it's remarkably better. Yes. Have we been able to do any research so that we can address what the underlying causes of this could be?
Well, on a segregated basis, I'm not too sure. But on a nationwide basis, we have ideas on why we have some of these particular challenge. One, if you recall, for over 26 years, we had less than we had around 190-something thousand polling units. And some of these polling units were very far from places where people live. For instance, if you look at some of the new settlements, some of them had no polling units before. So people had to walk long distances or go to long distances in order to go and cast their votes. But we have created additional polling units to obviate that particular challenge. Sometimes people believe that the atmosphere at the level of our polling units is not conducive for the exercise of their democratic franchise, because sometimes you go to polling units, you find political talks holding sway, roaming all over the place. Some people go to the polling unit to go and vote and come back with broken scores, and some of them are maimed. So some people stay away. Then when you go to a polling unit and it's too congested and you spend the whole day in a polling unit trying to exercise their democratic franchise, there's a possibility that you may just keep away. Then there are also people who believe that government has not worked for them and that promises that have been made to them over the years have not really paid off. Some of them may simply keep away. So I think that both the Electoral Management Agency, the government in power, the opposition, civil society groups, and all the critical stakeholders have a responsibility to do their own bit. Political parties also have their own responsibility to mobilize voters to the polling units. But they want to leave everything to the Independent National Electoral Commission. They want INEC to do civic and voter education. They want INEC to go and educate people on the logos of political parties. They want INEC to even go and bring people from their houses to come and vote for them. And we are saying no. The main responsibility of political parties is voter mobilization, that they have a responsibility to mobilize voters to come out and vote. And they also have a responsibility to assure voters that those of them that are aspiring to positions of responsibility will also work for the voters when they get to power. So some of these factors accounts for the low voter turnout in Nigeria. But we are confident as an electoral management body that our elections keep improving on a daily basis, and that with some of the measures we have put in place and some of the technological devices we have deployed, that Nigerians are beginning to re-engage the electoral process, and they believe that when they vote, their votes will count. And you can see the enthusiasm across the 6 area councils after the Independent National Electoral Commission declared the results in the 6 area councils. It shows that the people have confidence in our ability to do the right thing, and we did the right thing in relation to the area council elections in the FCT.
I like your confidence. I really like your confidence. But we had a lot of challenges as well.
I was just about to say that. Do you feel as confident as he does?
No, not really, because we have to look at the realities that we met on ground yesterday. 2 days ago. We have to look at the issue of the Beavers. We had a lot of problems, in the number of the polling units, and that was accountable to some of the frustrations and some people being disenfranchised if you were not patient. We had some of the polling units that you had almost 5,000 people on ground and ready to vote, and the Beavers was misbehaving. In a few places, they were working very well. In a couple of places, they were working very well, but when you have a Beavers that was, I think around 2,229 were deployed. And then you had some cases where it was not. I think INEC would need to focus, because it's like we are campaigning for the electronic system, to the technology to move on. We are seeing the improvement that is being made, but the Beavers, there was a lot of complaints from the different area councils, and where it worked, it was like magic. And what we want to see is the Beavers to perform like the duties. Some of them complained of being logged out, very frequently when you are almost capturing, there is a logout. And so we need INEC to get that together, because we know INEC has the capacity. And if these things are working, it's okay to move on, with all of that. But what we saw also was, people were, very enthusiastic. People were willing and waiting.
So he's right.
And there was a lot of, based on that, but it was frustrating for women who want to go back quickly and cook and all of that, waiting almost a whole day to win. It's a Saturday, and some of them, as at, there was a particular polling station, a polling unit that at 2:10, the Beavers hadn't worked, but we escalated to INEC, and they deployed a technical team. And the people were patient to wait. When it started working, they voted. And I think the transparency of the system is not questionable. That is one of the things that you can see, whatever vote, whoever voted, that they were counted, they were also appeased. We saw a few places where there were hoodlums. There were some, what should I say, young people who were aggrieved and so on, waiting on the sideline. I remember one of the units that somebody came to me and said, if you look at my right, my left, you see some people with, they have knives and things like that. Of course, we had to let the security people know, and the security people were alert because we saw them and we interacted with them. Are you aware that this thing is happening? And they were able to, we were happy that there wasn't further violence. We saw issues of vote buying. There were a number of places where there were issues of vote buying.
Vote buying in the
FCT?
Vote
buying in the FCT. In a particular unit, we heard they were mobilized to come and vote. They were given 1,000 each one to go, and they actually turned out and they voted. Many of them voted and went home, and they voted against the party that gave them, gave them the 1,000. So in a number of places, there were vote buying, there were digital issues that was going on.
Can we really term that vote buying? If they voted against the person that gives them 1,000
No, when we say vote buying,
yes,
it's the attitude of the people, because it comes from the two ends. But so those ones, they decided to take the money and they voted against, they still voted for their conscience. But it's also dangerous to take the money and go in to vote. Another place we had, you know, a politician who lowered, you know, his glasses, came in a vehicle and was being led by the security and just threw money into the crowd. That resulted into shooting because the crowd became so much because they were struggling for money. And I think
Where
they
was
should.
that?
This was in Buhari Area Council. You know, it was caught on tape, you know, as well. And there was a lot of, you know, struggle for the money. And somebody got really injured. And I think politicians should stop, you know, reducing Nigerians to beggars.
Should there be punishment for that?
You know, there should be punishment. We interacted with a lot of the police people, you know, and we told them, if you see somebody bribing, you know it's against the law, right? And we are not seeing arrests and things like that. Where they are, all of them say, no, if we see people, they were going to arrest people and so on and so forth. And so that was done in the periphery before you enter the polling unit. And that was how those people were not able to track whether this is going on or not. We also saw that people with disability, a lot of them, like, you know, where you had so many of them that are on the skates, you know, the cripples, you know, people with a lot of disability, the entrance in the first place was not quite friendly. And then you had the level of the polling unit, you know, of the poll of the, you know, the cubicle that was too high, and they had to bring them the document directly, and they were signing, you know, thumb printing, where in the face of other people, which was not, and I hope that has been sent to, the report has been sent to INEC, and I hope that in those areas where we had a lot of people, that next time you have to bring something that is more sensitive, you know, to the voters themselves. But on the whole, we can say that the election was peaceful, despite the anger of the people. The depopulation or the repopulation of the polling units needs to happen very fast. Because we had cases in Gwagwalada, for example, you had this polling unit, you had about 1,000 people on the line, you had another polling unit, you had 4 people on the line. And that's 4 people accredited, you know, to that polling unit. And so there was a frustration of, well, why can't these people accredit us? You know, but because of the arrangement, that didn't happen. But I think we're moving forward. We hope we can progress more. We need INEC to work on the Beavers. The Beavers, a lot of disappointment again. And we thought at this time we shouldn't be going through that disappointment. And so we're going to the off-cycle election again. We're going to Ikuti and Osun very soon. We hope that there will be, you know, better management, you know, in terms of that. Let's not have, we knew in the FCT, for example, that there has been issues with the you know, PMS. We knew that. So we can't be having the reasons of saying, you know, vehicles. I think we need to work more with the trade unions. We need to work more with the road transport workers to say, if you have a squad, because we shouldn't be having that kind of problem when there's just the FCT. We should have had that arrangement, you know, and but the report by the police, we found a lot of queues. On a day where there should be restrictions, no arrest was being made because of the conflicting order given by the police.
Well, let's take a moment at this point. We'll be back shortly to continue this conversation. Please stay with us. Well, we're still talking about the FCT polls and how it went down on Saturday. Right here in the studio with us is Mr. Festus Sokoye. He is from INEC. And we also have Madam Obi, who is the convener of the Situation Room. I'll flip this conversation now to my colleagues in Lagos. I'm sure they have questions for them.
Thank you, Mokwe. Madam, let me begin with you on this particular conversation. You were talking about the Beavers. And there are those who wonder just what the issue is. We've had stories before now where we said that you know, Beavers worked so excellently well, but for us, you know, can I call it a smaller election like the local council elections? It's developed this. There are those who wonder, could this be some form of sabotage within?
Thank you very much. The Beavers, when we went to Anambra Anambra, yeah, the election itself had issues. You know, there was a lot of issues with the Beavers. And, you know, there was a lot of complaints because of the ad hoc staff that had to down tool at the last moment. And so INEC was under a lot of pressure. And where the Beavers were not working, they later started working because we were raising and escalating, you know, the reportage of what we were getting, the feedback we were getting from the field. And many of them eventually worked. In the supplementary election in Anambra, you know, they deployed, you know, the Beavers that were deployed worked excellently well, and we're thinking that FCT will be a better election because the Beavers, we shouldn't be having problem with the Beavers. And so INEC is here. I think Festus will be in a better position to explain why the Beavers are still having problems. And it was really a challenge. I think if many people know that if they just go in there and they're able to cast their votes, you know, they will be more confidence in going and making use of their time. But citizens also need to understand that participating in the democratic process is an obligation. You know, for citizens to go and make sure that they cast their votes and make sure, because your vote is your choice. Your vote is also your voice, you know, into the democratic process. A lot of disenchantment, you know, is ongoing, and a lot of people don't feel belong. I think the question of trust is very, very major. But getting down into the Beavers, I think it will be, you know, we were not expecting the Beavers to give us problems at this stage.
Well,
so
we'll come to some of those issues, madam. Yeah, we'll come to some of those issues that you've raised, madam. So let me take that question to Mr. Sokoye. You know, repeatedly, I mean, the Beavers is supposed to be an improvement, an upgrade from the smart card reader and a number of other things that, you know, the Beavers promised according to INEC. So what are the issues, and why are those issues existent in the first place? Is it sabotage? Is it technical competence? Exactly what are the issues?
Let me just say right from the onset that the Beavers is the albatross of chronic and unrepentant election riggers. Those people who in the past were housed permanent voters' cards that do not belong to them, and on election day they keep on giving those permanent voters' cards out to people to go and use on election day, found out that those cards they have now have become completely useless. And some of them came to the polling units to make trouble. Now, I agree that there were challenges with the Beavers in just a few of the polling units, because this is technology. In the FCT, for instance, we have a total of 2,822 polling units. And out of these 2,822 polling units, we did not deploy to 593 of the polling units that didn't have any registered voters in them. Now, I don't think it is fair, and I don't think it is just to just use the challenges in one or two polling units to make a generalized statement relating to the Beavers in over 2,822 polling units. Now, part of the challenge the Commission had in relation to the Beavers is the fact that we have some polling units that had over 5,000 registered voters. So in all those polling units that have over between 3,000 and 6,000 registered voters, we deployed additional Beavers to obviate the challenges that people are going to have. Now, as we pointed out, when we were doing the continuous voters registration exercise, some of our people did not seize the opportunity to register in the new polling units. And the Commission did not want to disrupt the order in some of these polling units by doing what we call batch transfer. And that's why you still had some of the polling units having up to 5,000 registered voters. Going forward, the moment we are through, and we are through with these FCT area council elections, we are going to use the powers conferred on us by Section 42 of the Electoral Act to allot voters to these polling units. In other words, the Commission will carry out what we call batch transfer. But we're going to do this batch transfer in conjunction with traditional rulers and community leaders, civil society groups, and the media, and so on. Now, Is it sabotage? Was there a problem with the Beavers? There was no problem with the Beavers. The Beavers as a technological device worked very, very well in almost all the polling units. In a few of the polling units, some of the ad hoc staff that were deployed apparently did not pay good attention to some of the trainings they were given in relation to the workings of the Beavers. And that was why we trained our registration area technical assistants and even our supervisors on how to troubleshoot the Beavers and how to deal with challenges arising from the Beavers. Now, some of our people, some of the voters, when they get to the polling unit, and are asked to put their fingers on the machine. The moment they do it once and it does not capture, they start agitation. They start making trouble. Some of them, when we want to capture their facials, and you ask somebody to smile, the person is so angry that the person won't even smile, and then there's a problem. So in some places, people cooperated very well. In some areas, people just did not want to cooperate. So what we are going to do going forward is to carry out intensive training and additional trainings for the ad hoc staff that operate some of these machines. And also, we need to do a lot of simulation to make sure that people understand the workings of the Beavers. But in terms of the functionality of the Beavers, in terms of the quality of the Beavers, we did not have any problem with the Beavers, and it worked excellently in so many of the polling units, and we didn't have complaint in most of the polling units in the FCT.
Well, Mr. Okoye, this is a bit tricky because you didn't have any problems. In the same breath, you said that, yes, you had some challenges. So I understand that, I mean, the Beavers is a big deal to solving some of these, challenges we've had in the past. But it's important to be, very clear about the issues we're facing so we know how to resolve them. I mean, we have bigger elections coming, and then the big one, as we say, the 2023 elections. But quick things to clear out. First, must you smile to get captured by the Beavers? Okay, I know you laughed, but I didn't hear your response.
You see, the technology is configured in such a way that you can use 3 or 4 methods to capture somebody's biometrics. One, our first procedure is that when you get to the polling unit, you need to we need to capture your fingerprints. If the machine captures your fingerprints, you are asked to go and vote. If your fingerprint has challenges, then we capture your facials. It's important because of the way we configure the Beavers and because of the trick people play. Sometimes we ask you to smile in order for us to test whether you are really the person you claim to be. And then if we are not able to capture you, then the voters. The voters register has a QR code on it. We can use the QR code to also capture you to make sure that you are the person you claim to be. Now, if we do all these procedures and we can't see you and we can't capture you, the implication, as I pointed out severally, is that you are engaged in identity theft or you have come to the polling unit with a card that does not belong to you. When some people are asked to go away on the grounds that we have not seen them, we can't capture them, and that they are engaged in identity theft, they start making trouble. So I completely agree, and I say it pointedly, that in so many of the polling units across the 6 area councils, there was no problem with the Beavers. In a few of the polling units, we have problems with the Beavers because we anticipate that there's a likelihood that there may be problems.
Well,
and
Mr. Okoye, a lot of issues to actually clear out. Pardon me.
Those polling units.
Thank you. A lot of issues to clear out, so I'd like to take them quickly. So maybe the officials might need to tell people who say cheese as they want to capture them so they know that they need to smile. But, I mean, that's by the way. In terms of the functionality of the Beavers, one of the issues that Yaga and stakeholders raised is the fact that, they noted that some trained ad hoc staff were substituted on election day just before deployment to the polling units. And, I mean, they believe that this may have affected the use of Beavers. Imagine someone who had been trained, taken out and replaced with someone who had not been trained. Clearly, they will have issues with the equipment. So how do you respond to that? Because clearly, tactically, that doesn't quite make sense to a lot of people.
Now, as an electoral management body, what we normally do is that if we require 12,000 ad hoc staff for the polling units in terms of having one presiding officer and 3 additional assistant presiding officers for one polling unit. We train redundancies. In other words, we also train reserves so that if somebody does not turn up on election day, we will also replace that particular person. So what we normally expect ad hoc staff to do is that they must report to the super racks or the registration area centers at least by 5 p.m. on Friday in order for us to give them refresher courses. So if at 5 p.m. An ad hoc staff has not reported, what the implication is that that ad hoc staff has absconded or is not interested anymore in participating. Since it's voluntary, then we pull in the reserves that we have and then replace those ad hoc staff. There's a possibility that some of them did not pay attention during the trainings or did not really get interested, thinking that they know so much about the Beavers and that they can manipulate it at any time. So some of them had problems in terms of using the Beavers. And the moment they are unable to use the Beavers in accordance with the protocols that have been established, they now say, oh, the Beavers has problem, it has technical issues, and so on and so forth. We deployed 6 resident electoral commissioners to go and supervise the 6 area councils. And we also trained our registration area technical assistants to deal with some of these issues. And for each area council, we deployed additional 30 Beavers to take care of any problem that may likely arise in any of the polling units. So when a problem arises at a polling unit, it is the responsibility of the presiding officer to call the supervisor or to call the RATEC. They have their numbers. So if you have that type of situation and you refuse to call in the technical people to come and rectify whatever situation you have, then the problem resides with you.
Okay, Mr. Okoye, so
indeed,
you're saying that you
substituted
these workers indeed. Is that what you're saying? Just to be clear.
No, we have a response. What I'm saying is that we train reserves in case any ad hoc staff does not turn up. If he or she does not turn up, we move in the reserves.
Okay. So you didn't have any untrained so you didn't have any untrained ad hoc staff replacing the ones that were trained. Is that what you're saying? Because Yaga believes otherwise.
No. What we normally do is that if we require 12,000 ad hoc staff for our polling units, we will train at least 13,000 of them or even 14,000 and then put some of them on reserve in case somebody does not turn up on election day. We pull in from the reserves we have and then replace the ones that did not turn up.
Okay, quickly, Mr. Okoye, this came up earlier on in the conversation, and I'd like to just quickly ask you pointedly. The non-signing of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, did it inhibit your performance, what you could have done better in this election?
Not in any way.
So you're saying that with the current law, you can do excellent election, whether this Electoral Act Amendment Bill is signed into law or not?
Well, as an electoral management body, our responsibility is to utilize the existing law and conduct our elections very well. We deployed professionally and we trained our ad hoc staff, and then we collated the results. Nobody has raised any issue relating to the management of elections at the polling units, relating to the collation of results, relating to the announcement of results, and also relating to the uploading of the results of the elections into our INEC result viewing portal. So based on the existing law and with what we have, we conducted a good election.
Well, Mr. Okoye, just before I take this back to Ms. Obi, I just want to ask you, Mr. Okoye, in the event, okay, has there ever been a case of sabotage against any member, any staff or ad hoc staff of INEC concerning the Beavers? Is it something that anyone working, whether within, out INEC or on the field, can manipulate to whatever advantage? You said it earlier that Beavers is the albatross of election riggers. So, and if it is easy to compromise anyone, it's something that might happen. So, is there any chance of that happening? And in the event that it happens, what does INEC do?
You see, the Beavers, in relation to the Beavers, the codiness of each polling unit is imputed into a particular Beavers. All the registered voters in a particular polling unit are imputed into the Beavers. So the data of all the registered voters in a particular polling unit resides inside a particular Beavers. And you cannot move one Beavers from one polling unit to another polling unit because it will not work. So if a staff of the commission wants to sabotage an election, the staff has to sabotage the entire election, which is completely and absolutely impossible. So we don't have any issue of sabotage. Each Beavers is configured to a particular polling unit, and the data of the registered voters in a particular polling unit are inputted into the Beavers, and it is that data that will remain in that particular Beavers and no other data relating to the election.
Okay, let me just quickly ask one little question now as we close. We're waiting for the president to sign the Electoral Act. You have said that you can carry on with the Electoral, with or without the Electoral. It's your responsibility to do so. Madam Eniobi has also, asked that the Electoral Act be signed as quickly as possible. I'd like to know what we to expect anything to come out of our cards as currently is. The PVCs, I know that, INEC is always on a mission to get people to register. But for those who have registered and, people are fluid, they must move and are asking that this PVC be used, that INEC allows this PVC to be used anywhere. Are we going to see any innovations in that direction?
Well, the innovations the Commission embarks upon must follow the law. As of today, the law expects people to register in person. In other words, you cannot register by proxy. It also expects individuals to register in a particular registration area or in a particular polling unit. And it is in that particular polling unit where you are registered, where your PVC is domiciled, that you must vote.
So that is not going to change anytime soon?
No, if the law is changed, then it will change. But if the law is not changed, it cannot change because the Independent National Electoral Commission must defer to the National Assembly as the ultimate lawmaking organ for the Federation.
I want to say something before we close.
Yes, please.
I think Festus, is taking it maybe too far when they say it's only a few places that the Beavers had problem. What we are giving is a feedback to the system that so many things, a number of challenges came up, and it needs to be tidied up before we go into the next election. So we are not just making comments because we want comments for comments' sake. We are worried that some of these things are happening, and we work as stakeholders. From the civil society, we try to monitor. We also try to make sure we're giving feedback directly to INEC, and some of the problems were resolved. And so we need to look at it as we come up to tidy up for the next election. What we want is free and fair, fair and credible elections. The Beavers is a beautiful machine. We feel that will help in terms of transparency and accountability in elections. It's really helping. And what you see here, though people may say, what is going on, this is going on, or that is going on, but they are not going to question the integrity of the Beavers. And that's why we're saying when it becomes electronic transmission of votes as well, before midnight, we all had the INEC portal was on. You're doing a great job, but you can do more. You need to do more, in fact. And in terms of education, we have the National Orientation Agency. We have civic education that is not being, played out. And then you have the National Pledge. You have all the politicians pledged to the National Pledge. How many people are violating, and what are the sanctions there? And so people want to believe in Nigeria. We need to all stand upright for Nigeria from all the perspectives, from all aspects where we are. We need to be able to account for ourselves in the nation, because this is a beautiful country and we need to be part of it and not give up.
It's an appropriate message for Valentine's Day. Thank you so much
Happy
for
Valentine's Day to everyone.
Thank you. Only Mr. Festus Sokoye is wearing a tie in the spirit of Valentine's. But I have to thank you both for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. NAOB is the convener, Situation Room, and also Country Director, Action Aid. And Festus Sokoye is a National Commissioner, Chairman, Information and Voter Education at INEC. Thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Thank you so much.
Well, let's take a break now. We'll be back to talk about another issue very related to politics. Please stay with us.